Before I'd upset all of our callers a few minutes ago on the topic of our conversation today related to two Washington Post articles, I will say that one of them, of course, is very concerned on the issue of abortion. And yes, they will be topics of discussion this week as I get our various guests in to talk about the issue. But there are other things happening around the world and around the state. Now, several items, of course, have very local importance to us. And I mentioned a few moments ago the story coming up here in a few minutes, a little later on the program, with Catherine Jordan of Congressman Jones's office, something that does have direct impact on our community and particularly the Marine Corps. So I'm looking forward to that. But also, and this is another story that evolved out of or was precipitated as a result of some columns or stories appearing in the Washington Post. Jay DeLancy of the Voter Integrity Project is with us this evening. Jay, good evening. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. Let's talk about the Washington Post and their articles about the fact that because North Carolina has been looking into one area of voter fraud, they missed other areas of voter fraud. So let's talk about this story. And good evening to you.
Good evening. Yes, and calm down. Yeah,
oh,
I heard. First off, nobody knows whether the feds are involved in looking at the McRae Dallas case.
Right.
They don't telegraph their passes, so anyone's assumption that they're not looking at it may be wrong because that's just the way they roll. What we do know is that a different division of the U.S. Attorney's Office is looking at non-citizen voting.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two different issues. The non-citizen voting, the way they're structured in that office is the guy working the non-citizen voting is working with ICE agents. And I don't know who, the guy working on voter fraud, I don't know who he's working with. I've never met him. So he may be, but I do know that's the way that office is structured. So for all we know, the Post made that assumption just because there have not been any indictments coming out. But let's face it, if they were going to indict, why wouldn't they wait until all the testimony is done from this election? And get the sworn statements from everybody, and then roll in hot.
Let's talk about this in relationship to the topic of illegal voters. And it noted here that in this particular story, in Texas last week, state officials announced that more than 50,000 non-citizens may have voted in state elections over a 22-year period, though they subsequently revised those numbers considerably. So what exactly is the potential in North Carolina that we've had fraudulent voters?
Well, Lockwood, in 2012, this is how I think you and I first met over this story because it was a big deal. We got jury information, jury disqualification information for Wake County for a 3-year period and found over 500 voters who had gotten out of jury duty by claiming they were not U.S. citizens. Mm-hmm. Now, some of them were clearly just your run-of-the-mill, pardon the term, but run-of-the-mill gringo who just found a way to get out of jury duty. But a lot of them had foreign names, and I'm not talking Hispanic. I'm talking all sorts of foreign names, Asian, Northern, European. I mean, like Russia, Ukraine type, just weird names that we were amazed. And those people got out of jury duty by claiming they were not citizens, yet they were voting. And we raised Cain about it, and we didn't have a lawyer. We didn't know what we were doing. We knew the data was good, but we got out-lawyered by the Board of Elections, and they beat us pretty badly. But that was 500 in one county in a 3-year period. So you extrapolate it, and the numbers are pretty high. And this is what I commend the people in Texas for what they did because they were mining data outside of the normal channels. The normal channels being DMV, and that seems to be all the feds have ever thought of doing. And we've called them to task on it and publicly criticized them on it because that's what Chris Kobach did in Kansas, and he lost his lawsuit over that. He got sued over that very same issue of non-citizen voting, and he went to the DMV records. And the problem with the DMV records is you generally get people who are following the rules. And if they vote at all, it's because somebody misled them. And it's not that they're evil, not evil, but it's not that they're non-citizens, illegal immigrants who are breaking the law. It's that they are legal immigrants who are following the rules, and somebody hoodwinks them into voting.
The interesting thing about this, Jay, and again, Jay DeLancy with us with the Voter Integrity Project, and responding to a story that appears in the Washington Post, in which they, I think to a degree, as you just pointed out at the opening of the program, Jay, they are, if you will, trying to bring two stories of distinct actions into one oversight or one responsibility, and that, of course, we're talking about Leslie McCrae Dowless, who is accused of, has been, I shouldn't say accused, but there's some question as to his participation in possible ballot harvesting, and that, of course, is related to, absentee ballots. And then the other issue, of course, is the efforts on the part of you and other states who are trying to clean up our voter registration and our voter rolls to ensure that only the appropriate people vote. And I'm just wondering, in the process, does this further cloud the issue? We've got, this is an important story. We've got a congressional race, or a congressional district in North Carolina, 9th Congressional District, where we don't have a representative. And the reason is questions of the actions on part of staff and or hired staff. But at the same time, you have instances which you've been paying close attention to now for several election cycles of the possibility of fraud in the actual voting process. My question to you is, Jay, are they connected, or is it just a matter of all of a sudden we're beginning to understand the complexities of the voting system?
I like that the latter way you described it. We need to write a song stealing Paul Simon's title, 50 Ways
right, 50
to
ways
Steal Elections.
Yeah.
So they're, absentee, all of these are valid, not valid, but viable ways to steal elections. It's what we're gratified in is that public awareness of this is swinging in our direction after 7 years of working on this. It's nice to see we're finally being vindicated, and but it's only because it's only because of the federal election, right, and because the Democrats have found a way to blame. Instead of being on the defensive, the Democrats are on offense now on this issue. So, yay! I'm glad now Democrats are agreeing with us that vote fraud is a problem. After 7 years of them calling us racist for daring to mention vote fraud, I'm glad to see they've come our way.
Well, I'm stunned by the comment that it's racist. All right, as we prepare to wrap this up with you, Jay, and of course this is an important story, and it does influence North Carolina's ability to get representation in Washington, D.C., the question I have for you is, what next? In light of the fact that we're beginning to see other states with success, how is North Carolina comparing, and what do you do in North Carolina? Because it is a state-by-state issue, is it not?
Yes, it is, and we've been trying to get a bill through, and we're going to try it again this time, that will require the clerks of court to share information when they get information that says a potential juror is not eligible for jury duty. Either they moved out of the county, or they're not a citizen, or they're a felon. Those are three reasons that jurors are getting disqualified from jury duty that have a direct impact on the voter roll. And the courts have quietly been keeping that data away from the election officials. And for 6 years, we've been trying to get that law changed, and we're going to try again here in a week or two. I don't know the name of the bill yet, so I can't tell you, but we're working with lawmakers this week to try and get that put in again. And Senator Sanderson has already said that he will support that, and he had supported it last time. It did get killed in the Senate. It made it through the House, but Phil Berger has not allowed that bill to move. So we think what's going on in Texas and what's going on with Higdon,
that is, of course, that's
leaning toward cleaning them up.
All right, Higdon is the federal investigator. I'm looking at one item here, quick sentence from the Washington Post article. A state audit released in April 2017 conducted by the State Board of Elections after Trump and other Republicans claimed that as many as 3 million eligible voters had cast ballots the previous year detailed a list of irregularities in North Carolina vote, some more serious than others. It found out that more than 4.5 million total ballots cast in 2016, more than 400 suspected felons, 41 non-citizens had voted improperly. Is that a tip of the iceberg, Jay?
Of course,
Okay.
because the only 41 they found were DMV registrants. That's as far as they look.
Okay.
So they don't know anything. That report is bogus, and we've already pointed out a couple of ways it is, but we'll save that for another day.
All right. Jay DeLancy with us this afternoon here, voterintegrityproject.com. And, by the way, am I correct? Voterintegrityproject.org, or is it just .com? Either way.
Let's stay with the .com for now. Yeah,
okay.
my .org is not working right.
We're going to have to work on the .org.
I think I need to go to a doctor.
Okay. Jay DeLancy with us this evening. Jay, thanks for being with us. Appreciate your time. You're listening to Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107, AM 1240. Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. Another story, again, coming from the Washington Post last week, something that really caught my attention, has double meaning for us here in the community. First, it involves the United States Marine Corps and a program called MARSOC, I'm looking at Taylor over there, Marine Special Operations Command, MAR, Marine Special Operations Command, MARSOC. And a case of a particular group, as a matter of fact, commandos who were the first to be inserted into Afghanistan. They were, for all intents and purposes, I say this not being absolutely accurate, first graduates from the MARSOC program being inserted into Afghanistan. The result, within a month of their insertion, was an attack by a suicide bomber that resulted in their efforts, of course, to survive. And because of, well, the PR command of the Taliban and other enemy combatants, it became an issue of, well, murder. And 7 Marines were charged. As it turns out, they were exonerated. But unfortunately, the exoneration was, shall we say, mild. So coming up in just a few moments, an interview I did earlier today with Catherine Jordan. She's the senior advisor for Congressman Jones, and also in the process, we talked to her about the situation related to Congressman Jones. So that's coming up in just a few moments here on Viewpoints. And then, of course, following that interview, later this evening in the second hour, we'll be chatting with our panel of youths on Youth Points. Pretty packed day here. Of course, these topics coming from the Washington Post. Stay with us here on Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM.